Because
Linda Howe.
George Aronson,
George
created by George
Oh,
Aronson.
he probably did the printing. Because he's not an artist, he does photography.
Oh, okay.
But I think, see the name, Let It Shine, Linda Howe? She used to be a member.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's who it is. Emerson.
Are you going to play an F chord, and then we're going to look for the, what are you going to play, F?
I'm going to give you a C chord, right?
Good morning. This would be a great time to silence your devices. Thank you. I want to wish everybody a good morning. Welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are a spiritually alive, justice-centered, and radically inclusive community. And we're so glad that you're here with us, both here in person and online. My name is Lori Cross, and I am your Sunday associate for this morning. I do have a few announcements in a moment, but before we make them, I would ask that you extend to one another, feel free to get up and stretch, extend to one another a warm welcome this morning to somebody nearby with whom you did not drive here today. Thank you for all those great hellos. Okay, I do have a few announcements. In a couple of weeks, on April 2, it was one of the slides in the show, our Odyssey program monthly events will continue. We will be featuring Beth Wilson. That's on April 2, after the last service at 12:45. I hope you'll join us. That weekend is a big weekend because also that weekend, the day before on the Saturday, the youth are sponsoring a talent show to show off their talents. And we have a very special treat this morning. One of the youth kind of spearheading that effort is a talented pianist. His name is Eric Mencius, and he has agreed to play part of one of Bach's preludes, yes, this morning, as our postlude. So I hope you will, yes, fine, yes. Yep. I hope you will linger for a while at the end of the service to enjoy his music. Finally, we have a really other special event that I'd like you to help me celebrate. Joel had a birthday Thursday, so to sing happy birthday, I'd like you all to join me, please. Dan, would you?
Sure. Give you a first note.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. One of the things we're doing this morning is welcoming some of our newest members. And I'm just so delighted that they have found themselves called into the world and then finding themselves here with a community that itself is called to welcome people and to create community, more community, bigger community, and then to share that experience and the blessings of community in the larger world. One of the things about membership as a Unitarian Universalist is that we've understood in both of those traditions for centuries that everybody's called. A calling's not something that just happens to ministers. It happens to all of us. So as I open this morning, I just want to share with you a story about my first experience when I understood I was called to something. I'd felt unsettled. I felt like I was supposed to be doing something for much of my life as a child and a youth. I had no idea what it was. And then, as I was mid-20s, one night, middle of the night, actually it was 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was in a bad spot. A relationship I'd been in was breaking apart. I had this sense of I was supposed to be doing something was burning brighter than it ever had, which I didn't know what to do with it. And I confess I was making some pretty bad decisions. I'm an alcoholic, been in recovery now for 30 years, 32 years. I'm grateful for that. But at the time, I was not making good decisions. And this was affecting my life, and I was having a really rough middle of the night. Decided to go for a walk. I was very agitated. I'm walking around streets that I'd grown up on, streets that my ancestors had once, where my ancestors had tilled the soil and planted crops. Walking around, I was so restless. I came to a big intersection in the neighborhood, and one of the corners is a park. And I'm standing there, and I'm looking at the park, and I throw my hands up like, what should I do? Now, I got an answer. There wasn't anybody around. I got an answer. In fact, it was later on when I went to theological school, I read in this one book called Isaiah, there's this really odd description of a mystical moment where the mountains rise up and the trees clap their hands. It's a very strange turn of poetry. But that was the moment I had. When I encountered those words, I was like, oh yeah, I had that happen. Because literally, I'm standing there with my hands out, like, what should I do? And the trees sort of rose up, and there was a presence. Now, because I'm both a theist and an atheist, don't ask me to explain that, it just is. And the theist in me says I had an experience of God. And the presence says, live. Now, at the time, I was not a theist. I was very much a humanist, atheist. That's where I was. And I thought, whoa. And I did. I looked around to see if anybody else had seen it. No, I was alone on the streets at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. And then I thought, wait a minute, have I been drinking? Nope, I hadn't been drinking. And then I thought, oh, right, brain endorphins. You know, sometimes when people get upset and there's a lot of tension and then the brain sort of, I think I read about that in science class in school somewhere. That was a pretty good answer, Liv, actually. That actually makes a lot of sense, I thought to myself. But something else about the moment wasn't just live. I mean, it was like, live your life. Live fully. And it seemed like a really good answer. And at the time, I decided to follow that and see where it took me. I later came to understand that when one says yes to a call, it means that it also then comes with some obligations, some tasks that might follow. I decided, I don't know what that was I just saw, but the answer, whether it's endorphins or something more, that's a good answer, and I'm going to follow it. And I'm curious, as we talk in the months to come, what is your calling? Because each of us is called to something, some way of being with one another and being in the world. As we light our chalice, I invite you to say the words of this morning's affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is His law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another. I invite you to sing. We're singing number 1040. If you would like to use the book, the words are here on the screen and on your screens at home. Hush. I invite you to stand in body or spirit. In the Jewish tradition, there's the Torah, and then there are some additional writings. And in one set of writings called the prophets, there's writings about a prophet named Elijah. And Elijah's in trouble with the queen of the land where he lives and comes from because, well, he's been prophesying about the queen's behavior and how the people of the land are being mistreated and there's better ways to live. And sometimes the folks who are in power forget that they have an obligation to the better, to the care and the being of the larger community around them. That's what true leadership looks like. She'd forgotten that. So she decided she was going to silence Elijah. And Elijah has to run up into the mountains. And he hides in a cave. And he's sitting there in the cave hiding. And then suddenly, there's a great wind that blows across the land outside the cave. And Elijah's looking at the wind. Because Elijah had been wondering, what am I doing up here? I'm sitting around. It's quiet. There's nothing happening. What am I doing here? And the wind blows. But the story says there was no meaning in the wind. The wind blew. And then there was a big fire, and the hills were all aflame. And Elijah's saying, glad I'm not out there. But no answer about where he's supposed to go, what he's feeling in the fire. And then there's a great earthquake, and boulders are rolling down the mountains, and dust everywhere from the ground shaking. But no voice, no meaning in the earthquake either. And then, Elijah hears it. As it says in the story, a still, small voice. Elijah, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Elijah was called. He was a prophet. But called not to sit in a cave. He was called to be somewhere else. I've always liked that story because as I try to tell what a call is and a call is not, or at least what a call from the holy is and what a call from something else is. Something else usually comes with lots of drama and big, well, not always. I mean, I got some dramatic calls, but maybe because I need a little more paying attention than the average person who's called. But the calls I know I can really trust are the ones with that small, still voice. Is this really the right thing? Can we change the world together? Something speaks. We create community together. It is the heart of our spiritual practice as Unitarian Universalists, to be in relationship with one another, to connect. And as we connect, we invite one another to bring all that we are and all that we experience, and joys, sorrows, successes, failures. Milestones and passages are a ritual that reminds us as we are together in a Sunday program and an experience of worship that even though we may come with a great joy or sorrow on any day that we're with our community, we may not share it with words. We still share it with our bodies, with our presence, with our love. It matters that we're here. It matters that there are others who see us, recognize us, even in moments that are difficult or moments that have brought us great joy. This ritual is a reminder of the importance of community, even when it isn't something happening in words. And for this morning, an especially wonderful joy to share with the congregation is that over the weekend we had 10 new members join. So, congratulations. So I would like to welcome those newest members at this time. Let's see, is Mia or Carrie here? Oh, there's Carrie. Yeah, come on up. Mia Gomez, along with Carrie Davis is our trustee for member engagement, and Mia Gomez and Noreen. Noel.
Yep.
Having a kind of brain fart moment there. Together, me and Noel head up our welcome team. And the welcome team itself, people out greeting every Sunday, folks ushering and greeting and otherwise welcoming people when they first come in the door. And we're so grateful for your ministries and the ministries of the congregation as it welcomes people. Thank you. Carrie has words of welcome for our newest members, and Mia will then share with us their names.
We welcome you as once we were welcomed ourselves. We seek to be open and inclusive, respecting your inherent dignity, your ideas, and your vision, in times when it's easy and in times when it's difficult. We seek to be supportive, not only when you reach out in courage to us, but also when you need us to reach out to you. In return, we ask that you recognize our humanity. We will not always live up to our ideals. And when we fall short, we invite you to stay in relationship with us and help us more fully bring alive the spirit of love. We welcome you as an equal member of this congregation, of this faith, and of our shared spiritual journey.
Congratulations to our newest members. Annalie Blanchard, Claudia Holt, Lisa Hatala, Barbara Lucas-Chin, Dylan Haas, Joe Hart, Gretchen Braunscheitel, Jenna Diefenbacher and Kylie Garabed, and Jen Archibald.
If any of our newest members are here, I'd like to invite you to stand if you would like at this time. Yay. I invite you into a spirit of contemplation or meditation or prayer as works best for you. Dear great lathe of heaven, you foundry of souls and soulfulness, you churning, burning cosmos which has wrought us on the infinite loom of your own starry body. Spinning stars and indifferent stones, hear our prayers, our thoughts. Don't curse us to perish, to leave this life with our dreams merely fulfilled. Please don't afflict us with a vision so narrow and hearts so small that our greatest hopes will be accomplished within a single lifetime. No, please, bless us with unquiet spirits. Anoint us with impertinent oils. Grant us dreams so great and so numerous that even the fullness of our days cannot realize them all. Let us leave our inheritors, those who follow us, work yet to be done. Holy Spirit that bore us and that one day brings us home, allow us the mercy to depart this life with unfinished business. And for all we bring in the community we create that allows us to understand ourselves more fully and the callings we hear. Say amen, so be it, blessed be. I invite you to sing with me. It's number 131 in the gray hymnal, if you'd like to use that. Here it is on the screen. I invite you to stand in body or spirit, as you wish.
New members. That was Mike and me. Some of you have heard the story. Mike and I tried a few places on Sundays, right after we bought our condo in New Jersey. Heard great music at this place, great minister at that place. UUs all had service auctions, meditation groups, book clubs. Then we came here. The last open morning before the COVID closures. Not just a warm welcome. I'm getting choked up. Gently brought from person to talk. Then finally, before the service even, brought to the minister herself for yet another warm hello. We were treated with such care by a number of people. It sealed the deal. What is this place? What is it meant to offer? We came to hear Allison, to be inspired, lifted up from our weekly cares, gather in the comfort of like-minded people. Allison interviewed me out on the lawn because it was COVID to find out more about me. She asked me about my interests and experiences, explored that with me. That's how she brought me to the Odyssey Project. She brought me to the worship arts team, places to share my gifts in a meaningful way. Right away, she made it her business to help me figure out how to make contributions that would celebrate and honor my unique talents. I think about each of you, each special and talented in their own way. Teaching, finance, organization, the possibilities are endless. But it was strange gathering, trying to actually get to know people when it wasn't really gathering, it was TV. And for coffee hour, more TV. Zoom meetings and masks. Not easy to get to know people. Stresses. Fast forward, Allison, my touchstone, leaves. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling a bit, well, lost. Now Joel is here, helping us call someone. Call. It does make me think once again of a vocational or an avocational calling. What we do well, what we love. One person might excel at building, another at playing the piano, another at crafting, another at gardening, or, yikes, accounting numbers. But for me, being called is more. It's being asked to somehow rise up, rise above, be your highest self, bring your best game to each other, to find out about each other, not wait until someone asks to get involved. Learn who they are and ask them. Cheerlead for them. When I have sung or spoken at a service and someone takes the time to thank me or email me, that means so much to me. It makes my day. That approbation, that validation of the worth of my gifts. I go back. I look at the emails more than once. They feel good. We're never too old or too accomplished for that kind of attention and support. It's part of honoring the inherent worth and dignity of each of us. I like to watch collegiate and professional sports. March Madness, Princeton. What? Because I'm inspired by the tremendous effort it takes to try really hard and not give up. That to me is what we are, called to try hard with each other and not give up. We can all answer the call to minister to one another, to greet warmly, to listen with interest, to care about the other's thoughts and challenges, even like the athletes, when the going gets tough. A friend from the fellowship, she was here at the last service. We went walking at the Arboretum last weekend, and she said to me, one of the things she values about this fellowship is the opportunity to peacefully work out our differences and move on. I really liked that. Joel asked me to speak on New Member Sunday. We're kind of new. Then I find he'll speak about calling, and I'm like, what? How are those related? It finally hit me. For me, what ties together the two is this. Honoring one another is a long, two-step process. The warm welcome of a stranger, bringing them into the safety of our fold. But keeping them, building the relationship, is about the calling of every one of us, the calling to celebrate and recognize each other with every encounter. Mike and I, he's back there, he's my husband, he talks to everybody. If one of us, we made a pact a long time ago. If one of us has been out on the town for a big part of the day, when they get home, it's the home person's job to come to them and give them a hug and a kiss. And if they are derelict in their duty, they do get called out by the person who went out. We enforce it, right? There he is. Yep. Not take for granted that they're back. Always give one another the warm welcome.
Our offering today is split 50-50 with the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for the Earth. The Ministry for the Earth seeks environmental justice, seeks beloved community, and the flourishing of all life in that community. There are instructions in the order of service for how you can give. Just after he was ordained in 1948, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. was asked to write about his call to ministry. He wrote, "My call to ministry was neither dramatic nor spectacular. It came neither by some miraculous vision nor by some blinding light experience. Moreover, it did not come as a sudden realization. Rather, it was a response to an inner urge. It gradually came upon me. This urge expressed itself in a desire to serve God and humanity, and the feeling that my talent and my commitment could be best expressed through the ministry. The more I tried to escape it, the more frustrated I would become. And so a few months after preaching my first sermon, I entered theological seminary." Dr. King felt a compelling call to ministry. And you as a congregation are now in the beginning of that process, creating a search committee as your board hears from you, listens to you about who that slate might fill, that slate that you will eventually vote on. And then once you elect that search committee, probably around May 7th, they will then get to work first getting trained by the UUA and how to work together well as a committee and what their tasks will be. And then they will be in a great conversation with you, a large overall conversation with the congregation in August and September, finding out what you see as the important role of a minister that you might call. And then after that, they will work on putting together a portfolio to attract interested ministers and Those ministers in turn will be creating their own portfolios next fall, so that on January 2nd, the portfolios of those ministers arrived there having looked at the portfolios of congregations that are in search, as we say. Committee will be very busy that day. And then in the rest of the winter that follows, they will winnow down to one candidate, a ministerial candidate. They will ask a minister to become the candidate for this congregation, and then last week of April, early first week of May, probably somewhere in there, for an entire week, that ministerial candidate will interview with all of you at once, the entire congregation, for over a week. And that if you agree with your committee, you will vote to call that minister at a congregational meeting, as is the way for Unitarian Universalists. It's a good process, one I think most rooted in the relational basis that is Unitarian Universalism. You know, we don't have a required set of beliefs, but we do have required practices and required ways to be together. And there is no authority that says, this is the minister you're going to get. We don't do that. The people entrust a big part of the decision to people they elect. And then finally the congregation itself votes. And you know, for me, that is an example of the importance of community in the test of a calling. The essential proof that anyone who feels a call is truly called is when community confirms it. But one other thing that I mentioned is different about Unitarians and Universalists historically is that it's not just clergy, not just religious leaders who are called. Teachers, for example, clearly experience a calling. Nurses, doctors, other medical practitioners, they experience a calling. I am quite sure that a really good plumber is someone who's got a calling. And I was at thank you again for the birthday song, but it was lovely. And my partner took me out for my birthday on Thursday, and the chef definitely had a calling. Food was great. And what better place as Unitarian Universalists to really discern with someone about their calling or even our calling together. Yes, the word calling comes from the Christian tradition. Our Christian roots as Unitarian Universalists. But there is a sense in any spiritual tradition that some folks feel a sense of longing, here in the relationships they have with others, a sense that there's more that they can do, that they can make a difference by doing something more than they would normally do in an everyday life. And we've grown over the centuries. Our roots have gone into many places: Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, earth-based religions, or even just a connection with the natural world and the use of science to understand our existence and what it means to be in relationship with life on this planet. So when we talk about a calling, when I use this word, I ask you, what is your calling? We use this word very differently than its original roots, because a rabbi is not called in the traditional sense that a Christian priest or minister might be called in a traditional congregation where there's a deity that's making the call. Because here, for example, some of us practice Buddhism, and in Buddhism, technically, there are no deities, there's no theism, so there isn't a call coming from a higher being, necessarily. And in our congregation, some of us are atheist or humanist, and I really don't think we have to have a pantheon of gods or goddesses to experience a sense of calling. It does have a way of feeling, though, to be called. In the second book of The Lord of the Rings, the second book of the trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien, the young hobbit Frodo is asked by Bilbo Baggins and the wizard Gandalf to say yes to the call that call to return a powerful and very dangerous ring to the volcano where the ring was forged. He was to throw it in, called to throw it into that volcano where it would finally be destroyed. It's a call that comes with great danger, a call to leave the comfort of the Shire and journey through terrible danger to save his world from that ring and the power behind it. And when he realizes he's called, the book says, a great dread fell on Frodo, as if he was awaiting the pronouncement of some doom he had long foreseen and vainly hoped might, after all, never be spoken. An overwhelming longing to rest and remain at peace at Bilbo's side in Rivendell filled his heart. And at last, with an effort, he spoke. And Frodo wondered to hear his own words, as if some other will were using his small voice. "I will take the ring," he said, "though I do not know the way." I know that experience, saying yes, even when another part of me is saying, "Wait a minute, whoa, what are we saying here? What's going on here, Joel?" Yes. Dr. King said yes to his calling, and he had to say yes many times to different aspects of his call. And he continued to say yes when the risks were terrible. He answered that call even when he knew his ministry might cost him his life. He could have said no. He could have refused the prophetic ministry he was called to do. The story of Dr. King, as he sat in his kitchen one night, is one I have found so compelling, because I often sometimes wonder, what if this call that I experience asks me to go into mortal danger? I hope I say yes, because I have a little sense of pride about it, but might I say no? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't had quite a test like that yet in my life. But I want to know about it. I want to understand that calling, and not just for myself, but for all of us. So even though I have been at trainings for interim ministers, I've had the entire training twice now in my 13 years as an interim, partly because I've taken other interims to the training who are new and learning about it. I went a third time last August because the training we were doing for interim ministers last August was in Montgomery, Alabama, and a significant portion of the training was around anti-racism. And I wanted to study Dr. King and study the history of civil rights and study what was it that led some of my ancestors to enslave people. What madness. I visited the church on Dexter Street where Dr. King preached on Sundays. I went to the church parsonage where Dr. King lived with his family in 1956. And when he was there in Montgomery, he was leading a bus boycott. Lasted almost a year, and it made him the target, as one of the key leaders, it made him the target of white terrorists. They would call 30 times in a night and threaten him and his family. One night, there was a really bad threat, and it just really shook him. I had to go see that chair that he sat in and see the kitchen he was sitting in, where he'd made himself a pot of coffee. And I got there, and the parsonage was still closed because of COVID, and so being kind of a, Unitarian Universalist, kind of do these things sometimes, I climbed over the fence and went back to the back door and looked through the back door window into the kitchen, saw the chair where Dr. King sat. I wanted to see it. He sat in that chair that one night, shaken more than usual. He prayed, "Lord, I am down here trying to do what is right, but I am afraid. I confess I'm losing my courage." And then Dr. King said, I could hear an inner voice saying to me, "Martin Luther, stand up for truth. Stand up for justice. Stand up for righteousness. I will be at your side." And so he did. And he changed so much in his ministry. 10 years later, Dr. King was speaking out against economic tyranny. He had gone to Memphis to speak out in support of the sanitation workers' strike in Memphis. Something had shifted there. It wasn't just about civil rights anymore for black people. Now he was talking about economic rights and security, yes, for black folks, but for white folks too. Hard-working rural white folks. That was a danger someone could not tolerate because he died there for what he was called to say and to do. Now, can you imagine that today? I mean, imagine white Trump voters united with supporters of the progressive congressperson Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That'd be a hell of a movement. I hate to say this, but I am going to say it, that I believe that the owners of some large corporate entities would kill someone who had the ability and the will to bring Americans together in this kind of way. It breaks my heart. Howard Thurman, the great 20th century African-American writer and minister and mystic, he explained what it means to say yes to our callings. Don't ask yourself what the world needs, said Dr. Thurman. He said, ask yourself what makes you come alive. Go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Dr. King chose to come alive and to keep coming alive. And that is why he said yes to his calling. He chose life, even though he feared and probably knew it would mean the end of his life too. He chose because he said, if he had said no to that call, if he had said no, he would have felt countless small deaths every day and month that followed. For Dr. King to say no was a fate worse than death. Most of us don't have callings as demanding as Dr. King's. I'm not saying that our callings aren't demanding. When life calls, or the Spirit calls, or community calls, however that comes to any one of us, you can tell the difference between a call that's maybe kind of whimsical, or maybe just I kind of want that, a longing for something, and a call that comes that's somehow transcendent, because it's generally asking something that's going to be pretty inconvenient, that's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to require some kind of sacrifice. A good example of this is the desire to be president of the United States is not a calling. The desire to serve the well-being of all the people in the United States is a calling. Howard Thurman wrote about this distinction. There is something in every one of you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself. It is the only true guide you will ever have. And if you cannot hear it, you will spend the rest of your days on the end of strings that somebody else pulls. That still small voice, always a good check for me after I've gotten my attention drawn perhaps by some mystical experiences. Be careful what you wish for. Just saying. These kinds of experiences do come with responsibilities. And I've never regretted saying yes. Not that it's been without discomfort, sometimes even loss. But imagine a world where we all say yes to that call, whether we're Muslim or Jewish or Native American or Buddhist, Hindu or Christian or atheist or pagan. Imagine the kind of community we could create together. And really, aren't we as Unitarian Universalists? The humanist in me says, you know how it is in science when a scientist does some science, but it's really not fully science until peers have reviewed it in community. In the same way, can you imagine the power of community like this one? A community with people who are Jewish and Muslim and Buddhist and atheist and Christian and pagan and none of the above because none of the labels fit or don't want labels at all in the first place. Here we are, this grand diversity, and yet this common sense of community and connection, testing the calling we experience and the callings of others in the world. What more powerful way could there be to understand what a call, the power of a call, and how it can truly serve the entire world? Somebody's calling right now. It's calling for this fellowship. Dr. King knew this call. He lived his very life as a yes to it. I see you living your lives as a yes to that call. You 10 new members today, members who are coming, also discerning whatever calls they have brought with them and needing you to better understand them. Let us say yes fully to how we can live as human beings in this world, and say yes fully to the world and to one another. Let us be called out of ourselves and into lives of joy, of service, of the deepest possible meaning. It's so good that we're here. Now, how are you called? I invite you to sing with me. We're going to sing together. It's number 112. Do you hear? It'll be here on the screen. It'll be on your screens if you're online. I invite you to stand in body or spirit.
Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand? Do you sigh from the land? Do you hear in the heights on the plain, in the vale on the plain, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear? Through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush, do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, hear hold still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling thrill in your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the outermost bend, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear all the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers? They are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear?
Please be seated. You like this symbol when you gather in Sunday service to life, to making note of, worshiping of what is beautiful and good in the world. And when the light that calls you seems dim or hard to find, there's a community here in which we help one another keep the flame alive and share the light of its hope and possibilities, not just with each other, but the world. Go into the world that needs the light and know that we're here. We'll be here again and again every week. Go in peace, be in peace.
Thank you.